You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
A recent consumer survey came out a few days ago, and it basically, the premise was that consumer trust in food safety is eroding. Today, we're going to talk about the findings of that survey and what they mean to retailers. What are the pros and cons in terms of what you can do to grow trust? Joining us for our conversation is Ben Chapman. He is professor, so therefore he's Dr. Ben Chapman, professor of food safety extension specialist at North Carolina State University. He's been a friend of NACS and been involved in NACS for a while. So thank you for joining us again today, Dr. Chapman.
Yeah, really happy to be here and happy to shed any insights that I might have on this issue of consumer trust around food safety and where things are kind of at right now.
So I mentioned there was this recent Gallup survey. You were quoted in it and in numerous publications. Can you talk about what you saw as the big findings and what they mean?
Yeah, so the Gallup survey was, I would say, kind of an interesting situation. And what it essentially shows is that consumers over time have, I would say, have had a downward trend in trust in food safety, which is kind of an interesting situation, I'd say, for someone who's around the food safety world, because I've been involved as an academic in the space of food safety for the last 2 decades or so, and the focus of the industry and regulators around food safety in my time over the last 20 years has gone drastically up. There's more money available. There are more positions within the industry focusing on food safety. And those positions are looked upon as extremely high technical positions. It's not far within the retail industry that you have to go to find a number of C-suite executives with food safety in their title. And gosh, 20 years ago, there were almost none. And so, I think there's a dichotomy here, right? That the public view around food safety and trust has gone down, while internally we've really been investing more money, more resources, and had more technical experience. And I think that there's a number of reasons why. So one big one, which is it's really difficult to kind of reconcile with the public, is that one of the reasons why we're hearing more about food safety issues, whether it's recalls, whether it's outbreaks, whether it's illnesses, is because we're actually drastically better at finding them than we were a decade ago, 2 decades ago, 40 years ago, for sure. And so it becomes really, I don't know, there's a number of cliches that you could use, but essentially we are in a situation where the world of food safety is on the front page because we're just identifying things better. And then in turn, people are like, wow, man, there's a lot more people getting sick. And realistically, those same people are getting sick 2 decades ago. We just were never connecting the dots or finding them. So to me, that's one of the issues here, Jeff.
It's basically we've gotten better at our jobs. So therefore, unfortunately, it's made people feel worse about the jobs that are being done when just an estimate, 330 million people in the country say they each eat 3 meals a day. It's 1 billion meals a year in this country. And when you talk about the number of things that don't go well, highly profiled as opposed to people may think they have something, it's a very, very small number. And so it's intriguing that the better you are at communicating, might almost affect your trust, which is an odd way to be, because I'm not saying anybody would want to do that, but you'd almost want to say, if you're not looking at the public trust, well, let's not communicate so well, then they'll trust us more.
Right.
Of course, you never want to go that direction, but that's just the where we're in. So with more communication leading to possibly less trust, do we need to communicate as retailers more differently, better to offset that?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I think the quick answer is yes. One of the issues that we always have in the world of food, it's a very emotional space, right? Like, I mean, to your point, exactly. We're constantly, constantly every day we're consuming food. It's part of our family traditions. It's part of our community and society. And we're coming up here on the holiday season where food is a centerpiece of gathering. And one of the issues is that it becomes really emotional. And I think, Jeff, that absolutely additional, better, more frequent, engaging communication is really helpful. And I will say that I say that not as being on a soapbox as someone who says that the retail industry should be doing is not doing a good job. Is that we can always be doing better and improving. And I will kind of focus on the way that we've communicated around food safety consumers has changed. We're now in a situation where it's really easy to get in a two-way dialogue with consumers around food safety. And historically, it was, hey, we're going to put out a press release. We're going to make someone available for media availability. They're going to ask a couple of questions. We're going to put out some statements, and here we go. There's all of our info. Social media, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, has allowed for this back and forth dialogue. And I would say that consumers are thirsting for that. I will also say that I don't think the industry, for the most part, especially around food safety, is caught up to that thirst. There certainly is back and forth dialogue around quality, around promotion of products and very positive things, but sometimes around food safety we get real sensitive and we don't want to engage in a dialogue. And so if I could make a suggestion, I think that the industry could spend more time understanding where consumers are coming from and sharing information openly, and then also responding to those concerns, whether they're rational or not. I don't really think it matters. I think engaging in a dialogue will ultimately result in more trust.
Yeah, maybe in some respects it's, myth busting some of the old wise tales or whatever that are out there around food and safety. I don't want to harp on wash the bird, but that's a big one. It's like, my grandmother's always done it, I'm going to keep doing it. There's certain things, like when you break it out into the science of why we say don't do that, hopefully someone may still want to argue the fact or say nope, not going to do it, but at least it's out there so that somebody who can pick up on that information and be like, okay, that makes sense. That's gross. Don't do that.
Yeah. And Chrissy, I think there's even my communication around that particular item has changed over time. I think that the literature around trust, education, communication shows us that if we're really telling people what not to do, it often doesn't work. And we've seen it outside of the world of food safety, don't smoke, right? It was our initial message around, certain products. And we've seen that steer to, here are the risks. You make a decision. And I think that we're starting to turn that corner in the world of food safety as well, because it has been very, I don't know, paternalistic with our messaging, which is like, do this, don't do this, wash your hands, use the thermometer. And I've seen, not just within the industry, but within the regulatory community, public health authorities and academics, having a shift of, okay, here are the risks associated with do that. And if you choose to do that, here are the important things to think about. And, so washing a turkey is a great example of one that, some work we did at NC State a number of years ago on poultry washing. was part of changing messaging from USDA, FSIS, and CDC a little bit. I mean, I don't think anybody would actively acknowledge it in the open fora, but I do know from our internal discussions, we started really pushing to a message of, okay, if you do choose to wash your turkey or wash meat before, first of all, it's not reducing any risk. Secondly, it can only increase risk. And thirdly, make sure that you clean and sanitize the preparation area, which is complicated, right? Like, it's way simpler to say, don't do that. But it's also less effective. And so I do, communication has become a full-time job for many individuals in the public health community, and I do think we're getting better at adjusting and getting into that two-way dialogue, and being just more receptive to hearing arguments as to why people choose the things they do, and then engaging in a more friendlier tone sometimes, as opposed to the don't do this and do this.
I was going to save some of this for later on, but you raised it, so I'm going to talk about it now. The friendlier tone, I think there's a couple options. I think first off, Chrissy and we got involved in the food safety space because it's the right thing to do. Our industry sells 27% of the in-store sales are food service.
Yep.
But there's also a whodunit element that's absolutely fascinating. And with all these TV shows that focus on here's a crime, let's go find the perp. It's similar where you're an investigator and you have to find something. You do one-on-one interviews. You find out, oh, well, that's the fourth person that did this. So then you start linking things together, and you do it very quickly. Not you, but I'm talking about the industry as a whole.
Yep.
And there could be an opportunity there. I'm not saying create a TV network or something like that. but it is absolutely fascinating, the science and the detective work that goes into determining what caused something and then stopping it.
Yeah, and gosh, Jeff, I mean, I think you bring up a huge point that again, I see as part of our federal and state and local agencies really taking on this area of trust. They have even changed how and when they communicate about the uncertainty of an outbreak or the unlinked illnesses that might look like an outbreak, and that is. Truthfully revolutionary. Like it is, being around this space for so long, to be able to see CDC say, hey, we've identified this cluster of illnesses. We don't know the source. We are actively looking. Here's where we're looking. It appears that there might be some epidemiology linked to X. We'll update you. And here's all the information about when cases started, where they are, what's the age of the individuals. That world is drastically new in our communication. I say that, I mean, let's say the last eight or 10 years. But I mean, we've been communicating about food safety risks for a lot longer than that. And I think that is something that the industry has not quite caught up to yet. And I think there's a lot of practical reasons, right? I mean, I get it, and I hear it from industry partners that I work with, which is, well, if it isn't us, we don't want to say that it is us, as one. If it is us, our lawyers are really concerned about what we say about it being us, because it opens us up to liability. And I get that. Ultimately, if a retailer is part of an outbreak, it's going to come out, right? And so having that friendly tone, having that apologetic, gosh, we're not sure exactly what's happening. We're investigating. It appears that we're at the source of this, and we're really sorry. And we do spend a lot of time not only investigating in food safety, but we're going to also investigate where our systems failed here. That is unique. There are a few instances that I can count in the last couple of years where I've seen an industry member share something like that. But for the most part, it's much more sanitized and not friendly. And it says things like, often, in an abundance of caution, we are doing X. please keep in mind that food safety is our number one priority. And here's where you can find more information about all the great products that we sell.
Right.
And truthfully, that's not great communication.
Right.
No, you never use that in the home. You never would hear like going to the kids and it's like, in an abundance of caution, we recommend that we're going to be doing this today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I guess, so one thing, I know, Jeff, you and Chrissy, you wanted to talk about this Gallup poll. And I think there are a few other things for me that are really interesting about this. And one is that the way that questions are asked in this poll are really, the first bit of data that has been shared is really about trust in the regulatory world. And I want to come back to how the world of trust in public health has, unfortunately for us in food safety and other public health spaces, eroded with the emergence of COVID-19 and the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And you see the data in this poll being, to me, that's the most striking, is that you see a dip in 2020. If you look at, a great deal or a fair amount of Americans' confidence in the government to ensure safety of the U.S. food supply, and essentially it has dropped, and for our purpose of the discussion today, from 68% saying a great deal or fair amount to 57% today, and that break really happened after 2019, and it. To me, that's a big part of this poll, right? It's I think as I've parsed this out and thought about it from my academic perspective, why individuals might lose trust in the government regulating food safety can be for a variety of things that are very different. Mm-hmm. One is, and I'll not to get at all into the dangerous world of politics, but one is that there's a perception that there's too much regulatory oversight and the government doesn't have a good idea or function of how to handle food safety. A second perspective on that is that there is a real need for government regulatory oversight, but the government has been hampered with reduced resources and access. And so the two very different people for two different reasons can answer that question in the same way, which is, yes, they've lost trust. And I think that, it's not Gallup's, role to parse that data, but I think that is part of the discussion, right? Like to me, just knowing, hey, there's been a loss of trust in government regulatory oversight doesn't say to me that people trust the system less or more. It could really be, we've seen resources dwindle or agencies be depleted or gosh, the government doesn't know what they're doing anyway, right? Like, and those are two very, very different reasons, and it's different approaches to regain that trust. It's not the same thing. And there is also in that data, I'll let your listeners go take a look at it, but it breaks on partisan lines, which I find extremely fascinating as well. And it's just the landscape that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm. First off, I think the advice for retailers is spot on. Be more of a human. Don't talk to them. Don't talk over them. And I think we can get somewhere with that. Now, there's one other skill that in the wrong hands can be deadly, and that's humor. And you apply humor to this. And like I said, humor in situations that aren't also serious can bomb. You do it in areas that can be serious, and you have things like your Risky or Not podcast, which cracked me up. You look at things like, I guess the latest one, unless you had ones in the last day or so, you're going to talk for a couple minutes on your podcast about eating a fried egg on AstroTurf. Right, and is that a good idea or not? Will I get sick? And I mean, first off, how did this idea come up? It seems like some crazed AI decided that was a good topic to go through. Where does this all happen?
Oh man. The story goes back actually, probably over a decade. I started a podcast with my colleague Don Schaffner at Rutgers University called Food Safety Talk, and essentially the two of us get on a phone call. We do it over Zoom now, but we would talk to each other for a couple hours about things that we're doing, experiencing, seeing in the news, food safety topics that are current, but also our own research and our own, takes on big issues. And we have friends in the podcasting world who exist in a non-food safety food space, not anywhere close to what we do, who we've engaged with and been guests on their shows. And one of them said, I'm never going to listen to your 2-hour podcast because, you guys are interesting to talk to, but it's too much. It's too much for me. What I really want is if you could just take my questions and answer them and do it in 10 minutes and hold yourself to, not like being academic scientists and dancing around a situation. Because one of the things that we constantly over the first 10 years or so that we were podcasting, one of our taglines was like, well, food safety is complicated and it depends. And, if someone, should we eat this? Should we not? I can talk for 2 hours on AstroTurf fried eggs and come at the end of every episode and say, well, it's kind of complicated and it depends. And so we decided not to do that with Risky or Not and say, okay, we've got 8 to 15 minutes to convince ourselves whether we think it's risky or not in our own subjective threshold for risky. And risky doesn't mean zero risk or more than zero risk, right? Like not risky doesn't mean zero risk. It's everything, all food, everything that we do carries risk. It really breaks down to like, what is it an acceptable enough risk to me as with my, me, not just me as a person or a dad or whatever, but like, would I eat that? And would I eat it for food safety reasons or non-food safety reasons? And so we're now, as of today, 600 plus episodes into this, almost 700 episodes. And we get all of our ideas from people tagging us on social media or emailing us. And we still have a Google sheet with another 800 topics that we'll never ever get to. And every couple of weeks we pick 6 or 8 of them to jump in and try. And so AstroTurf eggs actually became something that came to us from a listener.
A 7-year-old boy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Who watched, the local news in Arizona in the summer, and they said, "Oh, your AstroTurf's going to be 130 degrees, and it's so hot you can fry an egg on it." And said, "So is it risky or not to do that?" And for the record, both Don and I said it was risky, not for microbiological reasons, which is the world that we live in, but for toxicology reasons. And what is it like to consume melting plastic? And it's not food grade.
So I would assume scrambled eggs and over easy would also be on the risky list.
If it's from an AstroTurf cooking source, then yes.
Okay. What was your favorite episode that you've gotten the most feedback from that just totally resonated?
Wow. So I think my favorite episodes, I don't think I have a canonical favorite episode of Risky or Not. I would say my favorite ones come from the personal people in my life, whether I'm settling a domestic dispute with my in-laws or settling a domestic dispute with my friends. And a couple stick out on that recently, or fairly recently. One, I had a text message from my father-in-law about some moldy strawberry jam that my mother-in-law had made. And he, in a short number of words, essentially asked me if it was risky or not. And I said, yeah, I think it's, I think it's risky. And then I made an episode out of it. And I don't think he knows, because he doesn't listen. And then I also have a friend who, we live in Raleigh, North Carolina, where there's an NHL hockey team, and this guy went to a restaurant before a Carolina Hurricanes game. His kids ordered a pizza, and it wasn't. They didn't eat it all, so he put it in the trunk of his car during the hockey game. Drove home, forgot about it until the next morning, and then texted me and said, "Can I still eat this?"
Depends on what was on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Chrissy, you're exactly right. Like that was I needed more information. I was like, if it's cheese and pepperoni, not risky. If it's a bunch of vegetables, because of the water activity and the interface between that vegetable and the cheese, and sitting out at 60 degrees in your trunk overnight, I think it's risky. And so I think my favorites are like that, where it's something practical. It's something that people do. AstroTurf, fried an egg on AstroTurf is like, no one's really doing that. But people leave food in their cars by accident all the time, or cook some stew and leave it on the stove because they've forgotten to put it away in the refrigerator, and they get up the next morning and they think, oh my gosh, I spent all day yesterday making this thing. Am I going to get sick if I eat it? And so those are my favorites, are the ones that are really practical and connect with people.
I like the pizza one. I'll eat it as long as there's no vegetables on it. But I wouldn't eat the pizza. There's vegetables on it anyway.
It's so funny. Like, if you look back at what we've done on Risky or Not, I think we've done like 20 episodes related to pizza. Cooking pizza over lava.
Yeah. I think you guys did one too about like leaving a glass of water on the nightstand. Can I drink it the next? Because I'll leave glasses of water all over the place and gladly drink them. And my mother was disgusted. She goes, "You don't know how long that's been sitting there." I'm like, I mean, probably a day. It's fine. Like, what's it going to do?
Totally. And so, stuff like that, you read things in the news of, the infectious disease paper of the day, which is like, the most dangerous place in your home is your kitchen sink. And so there's all these perceptions out there, and we often get really good questions for Risky or Not that stem from that. Or, one that we tackled a while ago was about toothbrushes in restrooms. And, if someone has norovirus in your home, and they have like, a diarrheal event, and then there's, what is known in the industry as toilet plume, can that contaminate my toothbrush? And so it's a very practical thing, because everybody's experienced something along these lines, and there are lots of different thoughts. So we started this communication vehicle because of a friend requested it. And it has opened up our dialogue around food safety with a totally different listenership than food safety talk. And most of the people that subscribe to Risky or Not are not in the world of food safety at all. They're just podcast listeners and have enjoyed, what we do. And that one, that podcast, Risky or Not, is a lot to me like car talk from NPR more than an informational hour on the food safety news of the day.
You guys found a way to make food safety entertaining, so congratulations. And for a lot of episodes.
I appreciate it. And at least, I mean, I appreciate your kind words because I think we think we're entertaining, but not always does everybody else think we're entertaining. So that's good to know that someone does out there.
I'm sure there's plenty of people close to you who will be glad to tell you you're not entertaining. That's what I've usually found out.
Yeah. On that, Jeff, my mom, who is I talk to her pretty regularly. She apparently just learned that I do any sort of podcasting, which I've been doing for 13 years, and it was because one of my kids mentioned it when we were having dinner, and so yeah, to your point, there are a lot of people in my life that not only don't find me entertaining, but don't even know that I'm doing this.
Well, I know you had said 2-hour podcasts are bad, 10-minute podcasts are better. We try to keep them to about that normal drive time. We went long today, and we went long because why shouldn't we go long talking about fried eggs on AstroTurf? So maybe we'll have to do some sort of cross-promotion down the road, and just like we'll come up with a couple on the spot for you that you can dissect. But food safety is a very, very serious topic, and it's really important to take it seriously. But it's also important to tell people how to take it seriously. So, the idea of risky or not and these other ways of communicating, Ben, it's just great for everybody, I think, to just open awareness and get you to think more instead of, well, they're just telling me what I shouldn't do, so I'm not going to listen to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate that, and to something that you'd said earlier, Jeff, I really agree. Is that unfortunately, food safety can be tragic, and we know that there's an estimated 48 million cases of foodborne illness a year, and unfortunately leading to somewhere around 3,000 deaths. And one thing that has sat with me from a number of mentors over the course of my career is that those are numbers, but when you get into the real life individuals who have been ill, it's really tragic. And these are real people, right? Like it's your neighbors, and it's the people that you work with, and it's the people, for me, I coach a lot of hockey. It's like the parents and grandparents of the kids that I coach, and people get sick, and so being able to walk that line of injecting some storytelling and humor into this, but also recognizing that when it comes to making food safe at our retail settings, that it isn't it isn't a joke, right? Like it's important, and I know from just so many great members that you have at NACS that I've interacted with over the years that it is really serious in those companies, and I appreciate it when I stop at convenience stores and get food myself. So it is a big deal to keep the seriousness of it in mind.
Well, thank you for sharing your time with us. I know it's been busy with school, with responding to reporters, with doing all your content. We appreciate this, and we take food safety seriously too. We have a food safety forum in April 2015 in conjunction with the SOI Summit.
2025.
2025. What year?
Yeah,
2015?
You're 10 years too late.
Oh, they went to the time machine. Oh, well. I just got all wrapped up thinking about Ben starting these things 13 years ago, and I was already in year 3 of his podcasting career. So sorry about that. But yes, we have that. It's online at convenience.org, and we regularly talk about food safety because, you have to be serious about it if you're going to be serious about selling food. So, Dr. Chapman, Ben, thank you for joining us once again today and educating us and showing us there can be different ways to talk to people about food safety and really make a connection.
Well, I appreciate it, and thanks again for the invite, and thanks for all that you do, and that your members do. It's very impactful, and I know not only me individually, but consumers appreciate it as well. So thank you.
Thank you all for listening to Convenience Matters.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.